Late in his life, the great French painter, does this sound all right? Is this a little too loud, or how does it sound to all of you in the room? Okay, all right. Late in his life, the great French painter Claude Monet was diagnosed with cataracts in both eyes, a condition that, of course, can lead to blindness, but that is also thought to have contributed to the increasingly abstract and luminous quality of the artist's late paintings. Our reading this morning, which I think I've shared with some of you before, it's one of my favorites, is a poem by Liesl Müller that imagines a conversation between the painter and his doctor about his condition. And it's called Monet Refuses the Operation. Doctor, you say there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris. And what I see is an aberration caused by old age and affliction. But I tell you, it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels, to soften and blur and finally banish the edges you regret I don't see, to learn that the line I called the horizon does not exist, and sky and water so long apart are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun, and now you want to restore my youthful errors, fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, wisteria separate from the bridge that it covers. What can I say to convince you? The Houses of Parliament dissolve night after night to become the fluid dream of the Thames. Doctor, I will not return to a universe of objects that do not know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms, and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world, blue vapor without end. Here ends our reading. Last fall, just after I left you all last summer, I began teaching a class over at Harvard Divinity School, which is not too far from the church I serve in Cambridge. The class is called Meaning Making, Theological Reflection on Ministry. It's a class where students who are doing their internships or their practicums or field education can gather to reflect theologically on their practice of ministry. But to get signed up to teach last year, I had to fill out a whole ton of paperwork. And among the documents I received during my onboarding was a list of the many generous benefits that the university offers its employees and faculty, very few of which are available to me because I'm a very part-time adjunct person. But nonetheless, I got the list. And one that caught my eye was that the university offers its employees free access to an app for your phone, an app called 10% Happier. Has anyone heard of it? Some of you have, yeah. It's a popular app. I guess it's also a book and a podcast, 10% Happier. 10% Happier bills itself as a wellness app, but from what I could see, I thought of it as kind of a religion app or a spirituality app because it offers lessons in meditation and mindfulness and gratitude and other spiritual practices that the app suggests will make us happier by 10%. And at first I thought that was kind of a modest claim, only 10%. But then I realized that I would be super grateful to be even 10% happier than I am. Probably we all would be, right? Happiness is one of life's great blessings. So, bring it on. And more I see religious and spiritual leaders holding out to their followers the promise of happiness as a result of, or the fruits of, spiritual practice. Now, come to think of it, we could make a similar claim for the church, because numerous studies have shown that people who go to church are, in fact, happier than those who don't. Did you know that? Did you feel that yourself as someone, folks who go to church? A recent Gallup poll revealed that 67% of folks who go to church regularly report being very satisfied with their lives, compared to 48% satisfaction for those who don't go to church. That's a difference of 19%, right? Which is more than 10%, right? We could have started an app called 19% Happier. I wish I'd thought of that sooner. In all seriousness, though, I can think of a lot of reasons why church-going might truly make us happier. At church, we're part of a caring and supportive community. We can work with others to resist injustice and help make the world a better place, wrestle with important questions in our lives, questions about life's meaning and purpose. These things can and sometimes do foster happiness and well-being in our lives. And that's a wonderful thing. And, not but and, I wonder if we don't sell religion short. I wonder if we don't sell ourselves short, our souls short, when we lift up happiness as somehow the purpose or goal of religious practice. Yes, happiness may sometimes be a fortunate corollary to spirituality, but is it the goal? We want to be happy, but is that what our souls most long for? Or is there something more than happiness? Because for one thing, religious practice can just as easily make us unhappy. It can open our hearts and make us more aware of and sensitive to the pain and injustice and cruelty of our world, right? Or foster in us a prophetic rage that doesn't always leave room for happiness. But mostly I just wonder whether happiness is up to the task of healing what most ails my soul. Look, we live in difficult times when loneliness and despair always seem to be creeping around the window. Fear for the future of our nation and our world and our planet. Fear for the well-being of the people we love and the values we cherish. At times like these, is it happiness that will bring us comfort and strength and solace? For me, the answer is no. Don't get me wrong, I'm always grateful for happiness, but when the chips are down and my back is up against the wall and my soul despairs for our world, happiness isn't enough. But what if there were something? What if there were something that could salve our despairing hearts? Something that could revive our spirits when all seems lost? Something that offers hope when hope is hard to find. If there were that something, I'd want to know about it and experience it and make it the object of my religious desire and devotion. So friends, I once endured a great trial in my life when for a long time my soul was cast down. I was heartsick. And the thing about it was that my sadness, my grief really, felt impervious to the many pleasures that would normally make me happy. You ever had a grief like that? When the pleasure just couldn't get through? Cooking dinner for my family, going for a drink after work with friends, curling up with a good book. None of these seemed to break through the fog of my grief and sadness. It was a lonely and isolating time. Maybe you've known such a time. And I remember one winter day during this time, it was February, I think. There was snow on the ground. The trees were bare and the skies gray. And I was sitting at my desk trying to write a sermon. And now just imagine staring at a blank computer screen and trying to find something helpful and hopeful to say to folks when all you feel inside is profound grief. And so there I was staring out the second floor window of my study in the bleak midwinter when a single male cardinal alighted on a branch just outside my window. And I had to laugh when I came in because I knew I was going to tell this story, and I looked over there, and there's Jan Casey with one of her pictures of a cardinal in her space on the Zoom screen there. But what can I say? Against the gray landscape, outside and inside, this cardinal seemed the brightest, reddest, most vibrant that I'd ever seen. And he was so close, if I could reach out through my window, I could have touched him. I immediately felt my heart quicken with delight. For the first time in months, tears came to my eyes, a smile came to my face. I felt profound gratitude for this little glimpse of beauty amidst all the darkness I was feeling. No sooner had the cardinal landed on the branch than he was off again. But what can I say? I felt changed. I felt called back to life, plugged back in. For the first time in my life, I felt not happiness, but something more like joy and delight. Now, words often fail us when we try to describe minor epiphanies like this one. But ever since, I've been trying to understand what happened to me when I saw that cardinal. What was really going on there? What was it about that encounter that called me back to life when in recent months so many other pleasures had failed to do so? Now look, I don't believe that cardinal came purposefully to me to offer me solace, right? I don't believe God sent that cardinal to minister to my sick soul. That's not what I'm saying. I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Sometimes we look out at the world and at one another, and all we see is the surface. The surface of things and of beings. But once in a while, we look out and we see more than the surface. Once in a while, we look and see the depth of life shimmering beneath the surface. We feel the fullness of life rather than its incompleteness, its lack. It's as though the thing or being that we are encountering, the cardinal in this sense, is like a portal to another dimension of experience, like Alice going down the rabbit hole into Wonderland, or the children going through that wardrobe and suddenly finding themselves in Narnia. Another dimension of life is revealed, not another world, it's still our world, but it's the depth of our world, rather than its surface. And in this depth dimension, the world is revealed as interconnected and whole. In this depth dimension, everything shimmers with beauty and wonder and awe. The theologian Paul Tillich said that beneath the surface of our being is the ground of our being, the foundation of our lives that upholds and supports all life, not just ours, a common ground that contains and connects us all. Tillich called this ground of our being God, but I don't know that you have to call it God. I just call it holy. And I believe this is the experience that so many of us are after in the religious life. I think this is the mystical experience that prophets and sages from so many traditions have spoken of. It's not happiness, but rather an ability to look out and see and feel life at its depths, to apprehend the world as it truly is, shot through with the holy, all of it sacred. And then to allow this experience to call us back to life again, in despite of what we're facing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about anything supernatural here or otherworldly. I'm really not. I'm just talking about life, right? The life that you and I and all of us live all of the time, but I'm talking about the depth of that life and not the surface of it. Right? A depth dimension in which the world is revealed in all its glory and wonder. It's like Monet in the poem this morning, right? For whom cathedrals and bridges and water lilies aren't only what they appear to be on the surface, but when seen in a certain slant of light, reveal a shimmering beauty in which the boundaries between objects blur. And we're all as one. Once Monet discovered this way of seeing the world, there was no going back for him. In our poem, he says, "Doctor, I will not return to a universe of objects that do not know each other. I'll no longer content myself with the surfaces of this world, Doctor. I want to live life at its depths." I don't know about you, friends, but I'm with Monet on this one. I want to live life at its depths. You see, the pleasure we take from life's surface, we might call that happiness. And that's a blessing. The delight that we take from life's depth, we might call joy. And this, I think, is an even richer blessing. Because joy is the happiness that doesn't depend on what happens, right? I'll say that again. Joy is the happiness that doesn't depend on what happens. It's the happiness that circumstances can't take away from us. This is a quote from the Benedictine brother David Stendhal-Rast, who reminds us that we can find joy in life's depth no matter what circumstances we find ourselves in, even in hard times. We can't be happy and sad at the same time, but we can be both sorrowful and joyful at the same time. Right? The world shimmers with depth and wonder. And one day I saw that in all things, a cardinal, right? And it reminded me of the beauty and goodness of life. It reminded me that life was worth living. It was something more than happiness. I want to close by sharing a story about a dearly departed member of this community, Nancy Cox, who passed a few years ago in 2021 or early 2022, and who for many years led our worship committee. And I remember when I'd come here for years as a guest preacher, I'd arrive on a summer morning, and Nancy was the only other person in the chapel at that time. She'd be the first person here, open things up. She'd be sitting right about where Sue is sitting right now, and the guest preacher would walk in, and she'd put me through my mic check. She'd give me a few tips about public speaking before I got into the pulpit, right? She was an actor, right? And I'm thinking back to the final conversation I had with Nancy before she died, about a week before she died. It was not long after she'd learned of her terminal diagnosis, and we were visiting her in her room at the Henrietta Brewer house. It was a cold day in late December, but the skies were clear and the sun shone brightly. And over the course of our conversation, I happened to ask Nancy how her prognosis had affected her spirits and her heart and well-being. And she thought about that question for a moment as she gazed out her window overlooking Vineyard Haven Harbor. She had a beautiful view of the harbor from her window there, where the light danced across the surface of the water. And this is what she said to me when I asked her how she was. She said, "Rob, I see everything with new eyes now. The boats in the harbor, the birds, the sun. I see altars everywhere, and I'm filled with gratitude. I see altars everywhere." I didn't say it to her then, but I'll say it now. Nancy, I see altars too. But then sometimes, as soon as the vision comes, it slips away. The greatest prayer of my life, Nancy, is that, like you, I will see those altars until the very end. That's my prayer for all of us. Something more than happiness. Something beautiful. Amen.